Good.
Okay, we are recording.
Awesome. Thanks.
You're welcome. So Curtis is going to be late. I don't know if you saw that, Jake.
I did. Yep. Is he a coach for oh man.
Yeah, he
that's
has
nice
been
of
for
him.
yeah, he has been for quite a few years. I think even when Kiva tried back when she was a first grader, he was coaching.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Have you ever seen a dancer play soccer?
Nope.
It's quite adorable.
Graceful.
Yeah. And very non-confrontational.
Wow, I like that.
Yeah.
No contact soccer.
Yes. Yeah.
Hi, Nolan.
Hi, Nolan.
Hello, hello. I hope you're having a great day.
Absolutely.
I am trying my standing desk, so it's entirely possible at some point during this meeting you will hear it cranking down. But I'm gonna try.
You're good. This could be a long one to experiment with.
I know. I know. I have a yoga mat underneath me, so hopefully that'll help.
Smart. Nolan, I like the color of that room you're in. You're muted. It's very
Thanks.
sunny.
Katie
Yeah, I like
picked it.
Yeah, well, it does, it doesn't matter who picked it. It's just it's very pleasant up.
Yes. Very happy in this room.
Yeah.
Hi, Cindy.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Good.
Cindy, does your laptop have a thing to cover the camera, like a sliding thing?
Yes.
Because it's like you're like almost it's interesting. There you go. That's completely none of my business. So just bothering me,
No, we were having some Wi-Fi issues, so.
Oh, I should have thought of that. Should have thought, thank goodness Ann is still here.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's,
Hi, Ursula.
if you need something at like 5 in the morning, Rena's here. And if you need
Hi,
something at
Julia.
7:30 at night, Ann is usually still here. So we're lucky in that regard.
Everyone's cutting it close tonight. I'm impressed.
Julia, I have to admit, I was reading an article. It was like 2 in the morning last night or this morning. And it was about the importance of rugs, what the movie The Big Lebowski taught us about rugs. And I'm looking at that rug behind you, and it's very
I don't remember what The Big Lebowski. I don't know if I ever saw The Big Lebowski.
well,
Now I should.
someday if you see it, you'll see the rug tie-in, and
Okay. I'll go figure that one
I don't know if you should or not. It's
Nolan says no.
there are people who are worshipful. I don't quite
Hi,
get it.
Joelle.
It's a cult classic. It's not worth your time.
I feel like maybe I'm lacking because I haven't watched it. So
Hi, Jose.
I wouldn't spend much energy feeling that way, so.
Hi, Christina. This is Steve just calling in on my cell phone until I get to a place with better Wi-Fi.
Hi, Steve. So we are just waiting for Carrie. There she is. Curtis is going to be a few minutes late. He thought he would get here around 6:15, just so everybody knows. But yes, Carrie.
Christina, I'm going to warn you, my network has been incredibly unreliable lately, so I may just pop in and out and in and out.
Okay, thank you. Okay, everyone is here that's going to be, so let's get started. I'd like to call the Mount Greylock Regional School District School Committee to order. It's Thursday, September 9th, 2021, and it is 6 p.m. We are meeting remotely via Zoom. This meeting will take place virtually pursuant to the law signed by Governor Baker on June 16th, 2021, an act extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, which includes an extension until April 1st, 2022 of the remote meeting provisions of his March 12th, 2020 executive order, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. This meeting will be broadcast on WillieNet TV channel 1302 in Williamstown and will be posted on the Mount Greylock Regional School District YouTube page within 24 hours of the meeting. At Mount Greylock Regional School District, our mission is to create a community of learners working together in a safe and challenging learning environment that encourages restorative-based processes, respect, inclusive diversity, courtesy, integrity, and responsibility through high expectations and cooperation, resulting in lifelong learning and personal growth. Next up on our agenda is public comment. And I just wanted to share my screen for a minute, just to remind everyone who's participating of, some quick general public comment rules. Anyone out there who would like to make public comment, we don't currently have anyone signed up, but if you could raise your hand with the Zoom raise hand button, which is in the reactions, I will call on you. And I can't share my screen. I see Stephanie Boyd has raised her hand. And I'm gonna stop the screen share because I can't really see Stephanie unless I do. So hopefully everyone just caught the basic rules of public comment. Okay, and Stephanie, you are the only person who's raised your hand, so you can go first.
Okay, great. Sorry, I'm not overly prepared, but I just listened to the Finance Committee meeting and I just wanted to address a few comments that I heard at that meeting. I thought Carrie Green's comments about, this is about artificial turf, about how, that project should fit into the values of the school and the values that we spoke about when we designed and built that school around, the environment and the natural beauty. And so I think we really need to consider that when we're thinking about this artificial turf field. People also spoke about artificial turf as being state of the art. And I just wanted to make you aware that the U.S. women's national soccer team is up in arms that they have to play on artificial turf when the men's teams don't. So I'm not sure under, what criteria we define things of state of the art, but certainly a well-designed grass field is considered state of the art by many sports people and athletes. I also want to address the issue of cost, because I think that's really important when we're thinking about this field. I've done a financial analysis, and I think Joe Bergeron talked tonight about how PJC Organics mentioned that a good organic field may cost in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Doing a financial analysis, looking at a $500,000 cost for a natural grass field would save the school about $500,000 over the life of that field. So you in fact could have 2 grass fields for the price of 1 artificial turf field. That may increase your playability more. Because one thing to think about in terms of playability for a field, it doesn't really matter if you have 15 teams that want to play. Only one team can play on the field at one time. So having a field that's available 24 hours a day when the kids are only available 3 or 4 hours a day, whatever it is, isn't really helpful. You may get more playable hours, useful playable hours for the students by having 2 grass fields rather than 1 artificial turf field. And the other thing about playability, it is quantifiable how many hours might be available on a grass field, because there are tons of schools that have are using fields, and they're available 700 to 900 hours a year, which is certainly less than what an artificial turf field is, but may be sufficient for the needs of the students. And the last point I want to make is, we often say we're doing this for the kids. And I think there are so many ways that we can do things for the kids. And some of it is directly supporting their sports, but also it's teaching them about our values. And last night, many people in Williamstown participated in a webinar about the negative impacts of artificial fields. And if there's something that we can do, I think it's teach our students how to be responsible for this beautiful world that we have the opportunity to live in. Thank you. Good luck with your decision.
Thank you, Stephanie. Okay, I do not see any other hands, so we can move on to the next agenda item, which is student spotlight.
Hi, hi, this is Jake. So joining us tonight, I'm pleased to have Mira Boyer with us. Mira is a 10th grade student athlete. She is joining us as a representative from the student council. Moving forward, we had Charlie last year, and actually Molly Sullivan is going to be our typical student rep, but she is busy tonight, so Mira is filling in, and she's ready to talk about the student perspective at the start of the year.
Great, thank you.
Hi everyone. So it's been it's been a really good start of the year so far. I know a lot of people are really grateful not to be on Zoom. It's been a little weird to see everyone in person, but it's been nice. I think okay, sorry, I'm thinking. I know a lot of people I've talked to are really excited about the athletics that are up and coming. A lot of my friends do cross country or soccer, and they're really excited about the meet tonight. And yeah, so I think moving forward, we're student council. We had one meeting a couple days ago, so we're still unsure about what the exact schedule and our concerns are. But I think we definitely wanted to discuss or look further into or having a later start time, which I know Charlie brought up somewhat last year. So we were thinking about or kind of pursuing that option. But yeah, as Mr. Schutt said, I'm just filling in for Molly, so I'm sure she can tell you more about that, and especially once we've had some more meetings. But overall, it's been pretty great, uneventful start of the school year.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee?
Yes, Steve Miller, one quick question. So first off, welcome and thank you for the update. I was wondering if the council has reached out to councils at other school districts to see about their thoughts on a later school start time.
I'm actually not sure about that, but we do. I know there is. We're meeting with I think it's Mount Anthony to have a further to have a joint meeting sometime soon. So we definitely are going to talk to or meet up with some other student councils, and there is a whole Western Massachusetts conference. I'm not totally sure about whether or not anyone's going to that one, but we're definitely meeting with Mount Anthony. So yeah, but we'll keep you. I'll let Molly know, and we can definitely keep you posted on that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, next up on the agenda is approval of minutes. Hold on one second. Do I have a motion to approve the August 12th, 2021 regular session minutes?
Steve Miller, so move.
Steve moves. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Julia seconds. Any discussion?
Yes. This is
Okay.
Steve.
Steve and then Julia.
So for the record, I actually left the meeting, I believe, at 7:48, and I did not abstain on any votes after that. I wasn't present at the rest of the meeting because that was the day I had surgery.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Julia?
I had a few edits to recommendations for changes to these minutes, but I also just wanted to raise across all the minutes that we passed in July a new policy or an updated policy on minutes with a form that was to be used. The form was used in this case, but also that they are to say what was done, not what was said. And so, and I raise that in particular because some of my edits are ways in which I was misquoted. And so I went back and listened to the video to make sure that I was correct in that thinking I was misquoted, and I was. So my edits would be as follows. First of all, I actually arrived at the meeting at 7. It was noted that I arrived at 7:15 because that's when Curtis recognized me, but I had actually been there for 15 minutes before. So for whatever that's worth, I'd love for that to be corrected. There was a vote in the section on the face covering policy. This is on page 12 of the minutes, I believe. It was not noted in the minutes, but there was actually a vote. It was at 1 hour and 49 into the meeting. So I think that vote needs to be reflected in the minutes. On page 16, I think it quotes me, and sorry, I don't have the minutes now in front of me, that saying that now people would know how to raise questions or concerns or new information. I actually specifically said that there were not many people listening and people would not know to raise questions. And so that's a very different meaning than was in the minutes. Should I stop? And I don't know if I should, maybe I'll just give it, the last one mentions I was naming tension among members, and I was not naming tension among members. I was trying to name the unnamed question, which was the tension between getting this done for the next summer and whether or not that was a priority, getting the fields done. So I was naming the tension between a streamlined process to move quickly with potentially undermining the integrity of a process. So, and I think that if we resorted to using the minutes policy that we passed, I would not be as worried about each of my words getting parsed. And so I guess I just encourage us to not keep a running record where people can be misquoted, but to summarize the discussions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on August 12th minutes? Jose?
Yeah, I really appreciated Julia having gone into this with detail, and also having acknowledged how the edition that we have before us is different than I think what we had expected upon approval of the most recent policy on minutes. If we choose not to approve these minutes as presented to us, would there be an opportunity for them to be edited and reformatted in a way that would be in accordance with the most recent policy, thereby making hopefully null all of the substantive issues that Julia raised regarding being misquoted?
That's a good question. I don't know if I have the answer to that. Jake?
Yeah, and I don't know if Carrie wants to weigh in on that question. I don't want to jump in. I do think that is a definite yes, Jose. Like by not passing these minutes, that does give the opportunity to go back and re-examine them from not only for content, but for form.
Thanks, Jake.
Yep.
So my question was about whether there was somebody else doing the minutes. I think we had hired someone who had done the previous set. Is that same person doing them, or is it a new person? Is it just a matter of a new person learning how to do them as we had voted?
I believe that all of these minutes, I believe these minutes were done by the new individual. And so this is a good learning opportunity for the individual we've asked to come in and do this. Carrie.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, my point was that it's the same person who did them the previous time though. So it's not like it's two different people. So just getting some consistency, and I agree, let's just, I mean, I'm gonna vote not to accept these. So it is an opportunity to just try to align them and make sure that they're in keeping with the, the votes that we've taken about how we want it to be done. Thanks.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Yes, Steve, one quick question.
Yes.
I want to make sure that the following would not be an open meeting law violation, but is it possible if draft minutes are distributed for people to send, small comments like this to the note taker to be adjusted before the full committee sees them, or is that not possible?
I would need to ask our attorney about that, Steve, and get some guidance on that. It's a really great question, but I wouldn't want to answer it
right
tonight, but I can pass the question on.
Thank you. Because that would resolve a lot of issues, not all, but a lot.
Yep.
Okay. We have a motion from Steve, seconded by Julia. All in favor?
Owen, no.
Conry, no.
Constantine, no.
Green, no.
Miller, I'm abstaining because I was not at the full meeting.
And Ursula, I didn't hear from you. You're on mute.
Sorry, I hate it when people do that. Malloy said no.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have 5 noes, 1 abstention, so that motion does not pass. Okay, moving on. August 24th, 2021. Do I have a motion to approve the August 24th, 2021 special session minutes?
Can I make a motion that we, similar to the first set of minutes, we delay the next 2 sets of minutes to have them reformatted in the form that we passed and in the on the template that we passed?
I think we can do that. So we have a motion from Julia. Do I have a second? Jose? Ursula, are you second? I can't hear you guys.
Second.
Okay, Jose seconded. Any discussion? Carrie?
So since these are minutes that Steve took, I'm just wondering if we can get a sense from Steve whether he can do the reformatting or if he needs for someone else to do that.
I would say I would need someone else to do it. I think these minutes captured the discussion, and I think they help provide, context. If there are mistakes, I'm happy to have the mistakes fixed.
So then would that be up to someone else on the committee, or is that someone at the district level who could do that work?
Well, these are special session minutes, so these are different than the regular session.
Right. No, I'm just saying this is not a question specifically to you, but a clerical task that needs to be done. And so I guess I'm looking to Jake or Christina to ask, you know, are you looking for a volunteer from the committee, or is this something that could be considered part of the work of the committee moving forward if their members, I mean, because this might apply to subcommittees as well. I know the finance subcommittee minutes are not in the proper format either. So it might be a matter of making sure that someone is reformatting these and potentially distilling them, but then, so it's kind of a more complicated ask than maybe appeared on the outset.
Well, I think there's a difference between subcommittee meetings and full committee meetings. You know, with the full committee, if you have a video, you know, it's very different if you want to have a terser set of minutes. You know, with the subcommittee meetings, when we don't have any video, this is the only record. And so for some things, it is very useful to have the full discussions. I think it would be worthwhile for consistency to just have whoever's doing the regular meetings of the school committee to also do the special sessions. And then you have one person
I'm
who's
sure
doing
there's
all the main
cost
committee.
associated with that, though. Julia?
I guess I've a couple things. One, if there's a cost associated with it, I think we should discuss if we're comfortable spending the district's money that way. And I, for one, would be to ensure, I know how much everybody already puts into this work. And if that's, if there's a cost associated with the district ensuring everything is done correctly, I'm all for that. I also want to name that, Steve, I think you raised this point about the difference between subcommittees and full committees, but the policy that we all voted on, and we had 100% say yes, said the same policy covered subcommittees and full school committees. And if we want to reopen the policy, I think we should do that. But I feel like we should be following the policy that we discussed and passed.
And I think the template was not part of the policy, but was maybe attached to the policy and is available to, you know, from the district office. I know we did include it in the policy subcommittee meetings. So it's a public record.
Jose, did you want to add something?
No, apologies, Christina. No, I think Carrie had just raised the point that I was going to bring up.
Okay. So I'm not really sure how to proceed. We could take a volunteer to, hi Curtis, to modify these current minutes if Steve cannot do it, but I don't know without a formal vote, because I think we would have to compensate someone to start taking notes. Our meetings happen, oftentimes our subcommittee meetings happen during the day, and I don't know if our note taker would be available unless they could, you know, watch the recording later. So there's just some like nuances. Julia?
Sorry, I also wanted to name, there's something called live transcript in Zoom. I see it at the bottom of my screen. I don't know if you all do, but that is a pretty powerful way to also capture the conversation without a video. So we could have, that way we could have both without worrying about the bandwidth of videos.
Okay. I just want to throw it out there. We have some time estimates. We're getting close to our 10-minute minutes.
Just to follow up on what Julia said, if you put things on YouTube, you can also get, you know, full transcripts from that. And if the information is available, then I think the minutes can be far less detailed. But for, you know, the subcommittee minutes, if we don't have, you know, video records of them, it's very hard. And, you know, I would like to repeat the suggestion that we record subcommittee meetings, especially right now since we're still in the Zoom era.
Okay, so we have a motion to modify the remainder of the minutes that we have set to approve. We need somebody to make those modifications. Jake,
Christina, I think we can do that for this set of minutes at the central office
Okay.
within a work day. So
thank
yep,
you.
for this time around.
Okay. So I have a motion from Julia that's seconded from Jose. All in favor?
Owen, I.
Conry, aye.
Constantine, I.
Elfenbein abstain.
Green eye.
Malloy, aye.
Miller abstain.
Okay, that motion passes. Okay, moving on to our next agenda item, we have principal updates. And first up on the agenda, I have Mount Greylock Regional School. Do we lose Jake?
I think I hope I'm still here. Am I here?
You're here, but crackly.
All right, well, I will start off, and then if it's not worth it, I can't see my picture either, and I just see Carrie, so, okay, she's shaking her head up and down, so I'm gonna go. So we had a great start to school. It was good to be back in a more traditional sense. Students are ready to learn, teachers are ready to teach. Overall morale seems pretty high. Everyone's cautiously optimistic. I would say they're hopeful and they're happy to be there. We're at full staffing, minus one paraprofessional position that we're working on. So that's a good place to be for staffing. Just a couple comments about numbers and enrollments. We had right under 45 new students registered this summer, the last month of the summer. So we're up to about 530 students total. We have a couple our class sizes range as far as grades, 72 to 107. We have two classes over 100. So that's a first. Well, it's the first in a couple of years. Add drop, so now we're talking about specific classes. Add drop period is over. That's the first 3 days of classes where counselors figure out and fix holes and address any issues with classes. Our Play-Doh, which is our a virtual component that we use for independent studies and more proper independent studies, are 70% smaller than last year, and that's a good thing. That means we're maximizing enrollment in our organic classes with our own teachers, and fulfilling student requests with in-house courses that we offer. One result of that is that we are running some classes that are smaller than usual, and we have about 20 classes with over 20 students, and that's not atypical. And most of those classes are just like at 22, 24. So that's in the average range. Nothing extraordinary considering the amount of electives we have, and offering. I think we have about 300 classes running this year. Quick COVID update: we do have one positive student case and 4 students in quarantine, which is similar to our numbers last year, so I'm sure they will fluctuate. And we are, I think, doing an effective job at tracking and managing the COVID mitigations, as well as the follow-up efforts. So pool testing, first day was today. It went great. We ran about 5 minutes late, so we have some tweaks to do just to get students into the swabbed and into building a little faster. But overall, success. That was all staffed by Greylock folks. Our student vaccination status is over 50% and climbing, so that's a good thing. contact tracing, just to mention contact tracing, the definition is the same as last year of what a close contact is, but how we handle that is different. And so we pushed that out a couple times because it is different than last year, and it's very complex. And so if I could get a message out to the families, it would be, if anything does happen, the nurse will call you, and she will walk you through step by step of where you and your student are and what the next steps are and where they have to go. I would like to give 2 shout outs to a couple student opportunities. The PMP, the Playwright Mentorship Project, is coming back to Mount Greylock. And so that's something that we typically have some students participate in. And Fall Shakespeare is scheduled to have their auditions September 22nd in our auditorium. And sign-ups will come out from Mrs. Von Holtz for that. But we're looking forward to those 2 student opportunities. So pending your questions, that's all I have, and I hope that folks were able to hear me okay.
Thank you, Jake.
I have a
Carrie
question.
has a question. I don't know if you can see her.
Jake, you mentioned, can you hear me? Nod your head.
Yes.
Okay. So you mentioned that over 50% of our students were vaccinated. Do you know what percentage of our students are eligible to be vaccinated? In other words, old enough and, don't have medical exemptions?
I don't know offhand. My assumption is most of them.
Yeah, so are we hoping to get those numbers up? And is there any thought about how we might do that?
We are, it might even be, we haven't had the time to tally them. So it's 50% and counting, because they're coming in via fax, in physicals. So they're coming in multiple text messages. And so we haven't had time to sit down and to go through the files of
I see. So it's 50% of the proof coming in, not necessarily 50% of our students who have been vaccinated. That's just what you're seeing.
No, we're at half of our students are vaccinated. Of additional papers like this that we haven't counted yet.
Right.
That we haven't processed yet.
So another way to put it.
Sorry,
just another way to put it would be a little bit above 50% of the total student population has already submitted proof of vaccination. That does not mean that the remainder is not vaccinated. It just means that they either haven't submitted it yet or they haven't been processed by the staff to catalog it.
Thank you.
This is Steve. Can I just add a quick comment? When I was submitting the vaccination status for one of my kids, it returned it and said was unable to deliver the message. And, fortunately, I noticed that. So I'm just putting this out there in case anybody else had, trouble submitting and thought that they had actually sent it, and it hadn't. So it is possible that the numbers could be different. The second time I sent it, it had no trouble.
Thanks, Steve. Any other questions for Jake? Ursula?
I just wanted to add on to that there's probably people like me that 5 days into school have been meaning to do that and haven't. So there's probably a bunch of other people that are and just have not sent the thing in. So hopefully the numbers continue to grow.
I just remembered to do my.
Okay. Thank you, Jake, for that update. Okay, moving on to our next principal update, we turn over to Lanesboro Elementary School and Nolan Pratt.
Good evening, everyone. I have 4 things that I should get through pretty quickly. It says 10 minutes on the agenda. I aim to cut that at least in half. So first, a huge shout out to all the teachers, custodians, paraprofessionals, and cafeteria staff, getting the building ready in the 2 days leading up to school. To remind everyone, our classrooms were pretty bare last year, free from art and stuff like that, to really make sure that rooms are clean. Now that we know more, we have things back in the classrooms to make them feel home-like again, and that was a lot of work. So all that work that went into it, I just want to thank everyone out there, specifically Miss Ashley and Nurse Larson, to make sure people got where they needed to go and all the COVID information got to where it needed to go. We have 4 new faces this year. Michelle Thompson, who's a new pre-K teacher, Melissa Marchetti, who's a new life skills teacher, Jen Renzi, who is our new school adjustment counselor, and David Solak, who is our new art teacher. Some new things are happening this year. Ela Curriculum, which I'm sure you have already heard tons about. Our community building, we have 30 minutes in each classroom to build relationships between each other and their teachers and really have strong bonds within that classroom. And the last thing is intervention blocks to help mitigate any of the academic challenges that were created by the pandemic. So that's the first thing. Second thing is our enrollment. We went from 190 students last year to 210 students this year. We had 16 students sign up in kindergarten, which does not include the rollover from pre-K last year. So I think our kindergartens are about 24 total. We had 10 new students in grades 1 through 6, and then 6 students returning from homeschooling. It's also important to note that we have 22 pre-kindergarten students this year, which is huge compared to our 9 that we had last year. Currently, our smallest class is 18 and our largest class is 36. So that's the second thing. COVID is the third thing. And day 1, we had 3 positive COVID cases found in school. But we had the protocols and procedures in place to quickly identify any close contacts and then utilize the test and stay program. And the close contacts that we did identify, they were cuspy, like they were like 6 feet or 5 feet, 11.5 inches. And I was like, you know what? We have this program, let's utilize it to make sure that everyone is safe. And that's what we did. And I have to say, students and staff have been fantastic at adhering to the protocols and procedures in place so that we can continue to stay in school and stay safe. We did have our first round of full testing on Wednesday, and I'm sorry if you hear my dog in the background. I'm a single dog parent this week, and poor Chop, I did take him for a walk, but he just loves to be with me. Our first round of full testing, we had 106 students signed up. So I had to give a shout out again to Ashley and Kathy in the main office. They did a social media campaign with Yoda and Yodette, getting everyone to sign up for full testing, and we had over 60 people sign up in one night just to join full testing, which I think is awesome. And we hope that number continues to climb as we have 210 students in the building. So that's the third thing. And lastly, the handbook. We updated the handbook. We added a quick reference sheet on the second page because people like to just call and get information if they need it. We updated formatting because the formatting, I just didn't like the formatting. It was a little bit ugly for my eye. And then we updated all the policies to reflect the updated policies in the district handbook. And that is my information dump for this evening. What questions do you have for me?
Carrie?
I think Steve is first. He's got his
Oh.
hand raised.
Yeah.
Sorry, Steve.
No problem. I just have a quick question. So thank you for the detailed numbers. Do you happen to know how the numbers for students this year compared to the numbers in the year before the pandemic? Because one of the things we've discussed a couple of times is, the long-term, trends for population in the county. And it's nice to see those numbers going up a little.
Steve, I have that in my report.
Excellent, excellent.
Not going back too far, but going back a couple of years.
Perfect. I will wait on my question then.
Thanks, Jake.
So Nolan, you can't drop that you have 36 students in a class and not expect some questions about that.
That is the entirety of the grade level. It's split among 2 teachers.
Okay, so what is your highest classroom class?
So number of students in one classroom is 24. We have 2 sections of 24 in grade 4 and in grade 6.
Okay, thanks.
Any
Any
other
final
questions for
questions?
Nolan? Nice
All
job,
right.
Nolan.
Have
5
a great
minutes,
evening.
20 seconds. Okay, next up is Williamstown Elementary, and I will turn it over to Cindy Sheehy.
Hi, everyone. So very similar to what Jake and Nolan both said, it's been an incredible start to the school year. Sometimes I feel like there should be some sort of, reality TV show made about what it takes to open a school year and the incredible teamwork it looks like between teachers, paraprofessionals, building and grounds, the cafeteria, the nurse, the office staff. It is nothing short of magic. And I truly am thankful for everyone for being able to bring our kids back and to bring our kids back safely. And similarly, I'm really thankful to our families and our students for bearing with us and looking at all the changes and trying to make sure that they're doing the things that we're trying to implement at school to keep them safe as well. But it's been an incredible 5 days. I think most importantly, our students and our teachers are just so happy to have kids in the building, and being able to have them there full time has been an incredible change from last year. And so everybody's pretty excited and still remaining positive about it. The biggest update since the last time I spoke to you, we ended up opening a 4th section of kindergarten. We just really felt like with the distance requirements of 3 feet, while we could, maintain that distance in the classroom with 3 sections, it felt like the learning environment itself would really suffer from what we wanted a typical kindergarten classroom to look like. So we ended up opening a 4th section, did some reshuffling with a teacher who was really interested in teaching kindergarten. And so we are now, operating with 4 full sections, which has been great. A lot of changes at Williamstown, a lot of hiring at Williamstown. We've hired 4 different classroom teachers. We've hired 5 paraprofessionals, and I am still hiring for a full-time special education teacher. And so interviews for that position are going on within the next couple of days. So we're hopeful to be able to fill that position as well. The other big thing on our end is, as I spoke of before, our enrollment is really booming. We have enrolled 52 new students just in grades 1 through 6. With an additional 10 students who we have enrollment paperwork already. It's being processed by the main office and by our school nurse. So we're currently at 417 with an additional 10 within the next 72 hours. So we're seeing growth at every grade level, which has been great. It's been incredible to welcome new families to our school community, and we're anxious to, continue to have our community grow with our teachers, but also with new families and students. Our COVID update, our kids, everyone is so worried about how our kids are doing and how the teachers are doing. And I have to say, our kids and our teachers are so used to wearing masks and staying separate from each other, and are so used to trying to maintain safety that it's really second nature to them. Our kids, we've had very few reminders that we've had to give students about wearing a mask. They're just so used to making sure their hands are clean and their masks are on, and they know that their masks stay on when they're inside. So it's been great to see the kids really just maintaining what they know. And we haven't had many issues. Right now with pooled testing, we do have 250 of our students participating in the weekly pooled testing. All of the results from our Tuesday test came back negative, which was great. I think one of the biggest things we've all been talking about is to continue to push out information to our families to allow them to sign up for testing. I know at the beginning of the school year, we often inundate our families with all sorts of communication and don't forget to sign up for this and don't forget to sign up for that. And so, we want to be able to make sure that this is something that is offered to all of our families, and we'll continue to make sure that that's a priority so that we can have as many students participating as possible. But overall, it's been a really great start to the year. I'm really proud of everything that the students and the families and the staff have been able to accomplish in just a few short days.
Thank you, Cindy. Any questions for Cindy? Thank you so much for that update.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our next agenda item. We have a report from the Director of Athletics and Co-Curricular Activities, and that's Lindsay Von Holtz.
Good evening. Today is a very busy day in the athletic side of things, but just to give you a quick summary, we have 225 students currently participating in some form of fall athletic program. Most of the program started about 2 weeks ago. Golf team is the only one that had a contest before today, but with course availability and rain, their second contest isn't until tomorrow, but it's 3:30 at Wabeka tomorrow if you feel like going to a golf match. Unified basketball had their first practice on Tuesday, and we have 18 students signed up for the program, which is really exciting. One of my favorite practices to watch. They were really excited to be out there. We had soccer, volleyball, and cross country all out competing today. I ran up from the soccer field, but I heard their final was 4-0 on the varsity side. And varsity volleyball literally just started about 3 minutes ago. So we have a lot going on in the building and around the building. We do have 11 students that are traveling to Drury High School each afternoon to participate in the Drury High School football program, which we are very thankful that that worked out as a co-op, because we filed for an emergency co-op with the District 1 Athletic Committee. They agreed. I've spoken with a majority of those either families or the players, and they've had really positive things to say about their experience so far. Definitely excited that they have the opportunity to play, and their first game is this weekend. We've been able to transport them there using e-pod vans. So that has definitely helped, because every single one of them needed some form of transportation, and it wouldn't have been possible without that. Let's see. Outdoors right now, we are not doing any form of limits on spectators. We are encouraging people to remain distant and be out there. That message did go out to our families as well as the families of opponents, and that seems to be pretty consistent across Berkshire County and the Pioneer Valley. We are limiting fans on the indoor event. So for volleyball and unified basketball, we are limiting fans. I stood at the door today and checked people in. We're allowing 2 fans per away spectator and 3 fans per home spectator. The way we set up the gym is we have both teams on one side of the gym, and they're using chairs, so they're not grouped together on the bleachers. And that also made that no spectators or fans are going to be behind the teams. So all the spectators are on the opposite side of the gym. Everyone is in masks, and nobody had a concern with that when they came in today. Everybody put their mask on as they got to the door, which was really nice. Let's see. We do have a bunch of sanitizing stations up there as well. The requirements are not as strict this year for the game itself, but we thought it would still be a good idea to limit the number of people that we were bringing into the building in the evening and stacking in bleachers. But I can still hear them from here, which is kind of exciting. On the club side of things, Mr. Schutz mentioned that Shakespeare is starting soon, but we have a club fair scheduled for the 21st of this month. We're still working out logistically how that's going to happen. It happens during our lunch periods. So students have the opportunity to meet older students in each of the organizations, learn a little bit about them, to see if they want to sign up for any of the language clubs, the writing clubs, and things like that. So I know that was much less than 15 minutes, but I figured I'd give a quick summary, and if you have any questions, I can go further into any one of those.
Thank you, Lindsay. And we should probably mention that the overnight field trip request is off the table at this point, so we don't have to vote that.
Yes, thank you.
Any questions for Lindsay? Oh, I see Steve Miller's hand.
Yep, and so this is essentially the same question I asked Nolan a few minutes ago, and it might be a Jake question. Do we know how the numbers of participations in the fall compare to the year before COVID?
They're a little shy of them. I'd say we average in the fall closer to 260, and we're at 225, so it is a little bit smaller. But at the same time, some of that is, in the past, we said 7th graders were able to play volleyball. Our volleyball program has become so popular that we did not have 7th graders. They're going to do some clinics with some 7th graders to help out. So that is one of the aspects that changed the fall. None of the programs ended up making cuts this fall, which is the positive side of that. But it is a little bit less than we have had in the past. We're still, the difference with this year is normally everybody's set and ready prior to school starting, but with so many new people coming into the building or deciding last minute to play a sport, we've probably added 15 to it in the last 4 days. And because we didn't make any cuts, we were able to add people to university level programs. So if I meet you again next month, that could have still gone up a little bit more.
Thank you.
Not a problem.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. I don't see any other questions for you. Thank you. Okay, next up on our agenda is a report from the Director of Special Education Services and Summer Programming Review and Update, and that is Patrick Priester.
Good evening, everyone. Is it okay if I share my screen? I don't know if you notice, I'm kind of a slide guy. So
Let me figure out how to do that. There you go.
Okay, can everybody see that?
No.
Oh, my bad. How about now?
Yes.
Okay. So this summer, we are able to offer programs in all 3 schools. In addition to our typical ESY programming, we are able to offer enrichment programming to basically anyone in the district that wanted to participate. So, so the 2021 summer extended year services and our enrichment programs in the district. We offered academic and related services. So in addition to our typical 4 and 5 week ESY programs at Williamstown, Waynesboro, and Mount Greylock, each hosted a multi-week enrichment program available to all students. This is new, not something we typically offer every year, but in response to the pandemic and the closures and remote learning, we offered these programs for students that wanted to participate. We also offered our typical extended year services program to promote academic, fine motor, and gross motor, as well as speech and language skills throughout the summer months to prevent regression. We also offered Camp Russell to some of our students who qualified for that, and they participate in recreational therapy, related services, and academic skills development on site at Camp Russell. And one day, basically all the administration team in the district took a ride down, was able to observe our kids having a great, as Dr. McCandless liked to describe it, a typical summer New England camp experience. So it was great to see that, and it was really refreshing. It was nice to see kids out interacting with each other and having fun. So in our elementary schools at Williamstown Elementary, we offered a multi-age program that services students in the pre-K and K program. Extending year services are extensions of the previous year. So these kids were in the grade level for the 2020-21 school year. So they were in pre-K last year and kindergarten. That's a typical program we offer as part of our extended year services. In addition to that, we offered a general education program that included a K through 2 cohort and a 3 through 6 cohort. We also offered an English language learner program for our students that need that service. And in addition to our special education tutoring program for kids K through 6, we offer academic tutoring and related services for students that need that. And for our elementary kids, we did offer Camp Russell for the students that went through the team process, and we decided that that would be a good placement for them. And in addition to offering the enrichment programs, we also offered, we provided transportation, which is new. We don't typically offer transportation to our students for the extended year services unless it's like a ride to Camp Russell. So that was something different, and took some coordination on our administrators across the district to get that set up. The programs offered at Mount Greylock, again, Camp Russell, we had a cohort of students that went there from Mount Greylock. Mount Greylock also offered an enrichment program, which was new. Mount Greylock hosted a 5-week summer enrichment program for all students to develop academic, behavioral, and social skills to address learning loss due to COVID-19 closures and remote learning. The district also offered credit recovery for all students affected by the COVID-19 closure. And related services and academic tutoring were also offered as part of our extended year service program. And again, we offered district provided transportation to the high school. Our numbers break down across the district. We had 125 students participate in our summer program, either special education or our enrichment programs. At Williamstown Elementary, we had 55 students, Lanesboro 31, and the high school, we had 39 students. And I'd like to give a many and special thanks to our staff that worked in setting up for this program. You know, it was kind of an ask after the year we had, and they stepped up to the plate, came out and worked. Some, you know, could do 2 weeks before they went on vacation, and you had a staff fill in for the other 2 weeks. So it was a great teamwork and camaraderie. And I would like to give a special thanks to Chris Hawking, our summer program coordinator, and Pat O'Connell at the high school, who served as her assistant in setting up this program. And it's not the most easiest thing to do when you're trying to provide programming across 3 schools that are basically almost a half hour apart in its most extent. So it was nice to have people on site, just making sure the programs are running like they were supposed to and the kids were being cared for. And we'd also like to thank our nurses who, after a year they had, were willing to come in and still work with our students. Unless we have any more questions, I'll stop sharing. That's just a quick review of our summer program. So if there's any more questions, we can move on. Yeah, Carrie.
So I had read that nationally speaking, it was really hard for schools to get people to participate, to teach, to coordinate, to run summer programs in schools. So that speaks volumes for the teachers and the staff in our district, that it wasn't so much coercing them, it was really just inviting them, and they showed up and they were there and ready to go. And that's just amazing. It has been great for the kids in our districts in all 3 schools. So I share your thanks. I have a question about the enrichment program. I know it was new this year, and I know we talked about maybe doing it not just this year because of COVID, but perhaps doing it in the future as well. And I'm wondering how we would assess whether there would be interest, demand, or need for ongoing enrichment programs.
I'm happy to jump in here. You know, I think we will look at the students who did the enrichment and see what their outcomes are as we proceed through this year. I think there's also an opportunity to, you know, get parent feedback, get student feedback, get the staff who were involved, their feedback. I think there's also an opportunity to look a little broader at enrichment, what enrichment means and what areas that covers. I know one of the important pieces for all of the school councils and for our leadership team is to expand opportunities in the arts. You know, not that the Berkshires doesn't have lots of arts opportunities for young people in the summer. However, offering them at little charge or no charge through a public school system with transportation included would certainly, as we begin to think about what enrichment looked like in the summer that was and what it could look like in the summer that is to be, I think we could partner with some really fantastic arts organizations, you know, just for instance, you know, as well as the academic pieces, but I think there's so many opportunities and places that are really wanting to do outreach. And I think we have a group of people that we serve that would welcome that.
Thanks, Jake. That's really exciting.
Any other questions for Patrick in that realm? Okay. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.
Okay, next up on our agenda is the superintendent report. So I will turn it over to Jake McCandless.
Thank you, Christina, and thank you, everybody. I'm not sure I'll take up my allotted time either, although 30 minutes from now, I may regret saying that. Christina, can I have a share screen? Or I'm struggling with getting that to work.
You don't have, that's
okay,
weird.
there we go. All set. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Can somebody, Carrie, can you give me a head nod, or Christina? Can you see
You're
that?
good. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Just, I think 8 or 9 slides here tonight, just to do a few updates. And I thank the principals and our Director of Special Education Services and our Activities and Athletic Director for their excellent reports. And so I will, in some ways, add to those and hopefully provide some new information. First of all, I just really thank you to so many people, as all of the principals said, as Pat said, getting ready to roll for school this year was really, opening school is always monumental. This year was monumental and then some. Really want to thank our custodial care teams, the folks that take care of our buildings. If you think about the summer that just was, I was having a conversation with a parent at the soccer game for a few minutes, this parent said she wishes she could do July over again, and that we could actually have more than 6 days that we didn't get rain, and maybe a couple of days that we didn't get rain and it wasn't 95 degrees. And so when you think about what July was like, and consider our custodians were essentially resetting the entire district after a year of furniture being put away and some of the nice things in classrooms being put away. Really want to thank our custodial and buildings and ground staff for the work they did, simply to be ready to welcome our students and staff back safely. And thank you to really everybody who helped us get ready for the summer. Do want to thank Dr. Joshi, who was with us here at the very end of summer, right before school started. She spent 3 really powerful days with us, days where we asked ourselves and each other challenging questions, where we all learned some things that I think made us acutely uncomfortable. But she did so with real skill and kind of with overwhelming force. And I really want to thank the 45 educators, teachers, and paraprofessionals who took part in our 3-day institute. I want to thank the 12 administrators who also took part in several pieces of that. As we all learned about where we are in terms of being advocates for social justice and making sure that we're welcoming all of our students and all of our families in the way we should, and for helping teachers move beyond simple reflection to actually putting ideas and practices into place. I want to thank our students, coming back, and I think we finished up day 6 today. So amazing to see our students, whether it's our brand new pre-K kids or our newly minted seniors. It's just wonderful to have them back. There's at some point in the summer, you just hit a point where the grown-ups are kind of tired of each other, and we really need the mass of why we're here back, our students. Our students have been nothing but helpful this year with trying to keep in-person school going in the midst of a pandemic. Our students have been nothing but hopeful, and as they always do, giving us great reason for optimism and hope. And our students have been wonderful neighbors, helping each other, older students helping younger students, all students helping, those of us that still consider ourselves new to the district get some things straight. So I'm very grateful to our students. Very grateful to the Massachusetts Association of School Committees and to Dorothy Presser in particular, one of their regional field reps. And I'm grateful to all of you on the school committee for giving up a good part of a Saturday to learn a little bit more about the planning that we need to do in order to best serve our communities. And I'm really grateful for the time you put into helping to consider what's a meaningful way for those plans to intersect and interact with the superintendent evaluation, and how we make all of this work together to better serve the students and the families that are really our only reason for being here. And then, finally, among my thank yous, and I could probably go on for another 5 minutes with thank yous, but it was wonderful to see our students back. It was similarly wonderful to see our families who take care of those students and love those students and support those students. Really wonderful to see them back. Fantastic to see families supporting their children and neighbors' children and nieces and nephews and grandchildren at our athletic events. Wonderful to see the smiles and the tears at the elementary school as drop-off was taking place. We never forget why we're here. We never forget that it's an incredible honor and a real privilege to have the position of serving people's children. And I'm very grateful to the families that we serve for lending us their child's energy, lending us their child's deep intellect, and lending us their child's wonderful individuality, especially during times that make us all a little nervous and make us all a bit uneasy. Just a couple of words in a back to school update around enrollment. And Steve, hopefully this gets to at least a piece of your question. This data is really initial. We will have a much more permanent-ish view of our enrollments after the official October 1 count. But you can see we have this school year, last school year, 2019 school year, which was the March that COVID hit. And then we have one fully pre-COVID year included on this data set. And actually it gets really murky to go back and look at that data on a district level because the regional school district did not exist at that point, although we will, when we do a little further dig into enrollments, we will look at each of the individual school levels for the 17-18 and 16-17 years, just to get a 5 or 6 year look. You can see the district this year is up to 1,157 students. If we think back to last year, I think it was in November or December when we talked about the Berkshire County Regional Planning Group's forecast for where we would be at the beginning of this school year. They had us forecast to be at 1,070 students. So, we're pretty pleased to see that 1,157. Listening to Ms. Sheehy tonight, it sounds like that's going to be 10 students higher by this time next week. And that's exciting. We're excited to serve the families that have always been with us. We're excited to serve families who are seeing us as a great educational option for their child and making a change. We're totally grateful to have some of our homeschool families come back to be with us. And we're really grateful for folks that are new in Lanesboro, new in Williamstown, and choosing to educate their children with us. So you can see Williamstown, as Cindy said, is at 417. And really that's as high as Williamstown's been. You'd have to go back to the 18-19 pre-COVID school year to be higher than that. Lanesboro is, Nolan said 210, I had 209, but really looking good there, looking solid there, the highest that we have in this 4-year span. And Mount Greylock, which I think is growing a little bit every day or a couple of new students each week here over the last couple of weeks, sitting higher than we were last year. Mount Greylock, we certainly could have ramped that up through school choice and some strategic spots if we chose to. But we're pleased with where our enrollments are. We continue to keep a careful eye on class sizes. We continue to keep a careful eye on what new housing opportunities, particularly in Williamstown, mean for us in terms of best serving students and families this year, and in terms of budget preparations and educational planning for next year. Just a word about homeschool students, because it's something that we certainly discussed last year. Last year, you can see due to the pandemic, we were serving, we had 62 individual students whose families made the choice to homeschool. This year with 30, we're still at kind of a 4 or 5 year historic high if you take away next year. We anticipate that some of those folks may be coming back to us at some point during the school year, maybe coming back to us next year, but certainly, families that choose to homeschool have nothing but their superintendent's respect for the lifestyle choice that is, because it is a lifestyle choice. It's a massive commitment. It's a good exercise for me to go through the plans and for our principals to go through the plans. And certainly we're very pleased to serve those families in any way we can, and very pleased to welcome their students back into our schools when they choose to do so, and if they choose to do so. Nolan touched on our expanded pre-K a little bit tonight. We are serving 22 students at Lanesboro Elementary School, and we are serving 24 students at Williamstown Elementary School. And we're so excited about this sort of back to the future pre-K expansion. We have asked Sherry Monty to serve as the mentor for both of our preschool programs. So as well as our teaching duties, we're really asking Sherry, and I think in some ways giving Sherry an opportunity she's been looking for some time, which is to really get these two programs tied together and make sure that programmatically we're just as strong and as powerful as we can be as we lay the foundation for the next 12 or 13 years of these students to learn. And so, when you have somebody like Sherry, who in a lot of ways really wrote the book for public school pre-K services in Massachusetts, we want to take advantage of the opportunity to have a real master in our midst. So we're excited to welcome these families, excited to welcome these students, excited to welcome the new staff that are associated with these programs, and very grateful to Sherry for stepping up into this leadership role as a teacher leader. Health and safety, of course, this is just like pre-K is the foundation for all of the education that follows. This year, health and safety are the foundation for everything else we do. And you know how much energy you have put into this. You know how much energy we have put into this. We have had COVID-19 cases this year. I am not somebody that subscribes to the fact that, well, we're just going to have sick kids, so we might as well get used to it. I think we still owe to our families and to our students to work to be as healthy and as safe as we can be with kids in school. So we have had 10 cases among our 3 schools. At this point, the state is not collecting data on COVID cases that are students or staff members. That official data collection will begin on Monday. And we will be reporting those cases so that the state can track this, and we can compare and contrast across the state. And the state is also tracking this year on an individual school basis, not individual student pooled testing results or staff pooled testing results, but they are tracking a school by school what your pooled testing results say. We continue to work with local and state officials with each and every case that we have, or a case of a close contact at home or in school. And we're continually working on refining and defining close contacts in our local setting, and taking the big definition and working to make sure we have a full understanding of what that means for us in Lanesboro and Williamstown. We do really urge all of our families to sign up for pool testing. A few of us have had, I found it to be a real privilege and a fun time to get to participate in helping kids take the pool testing. I will probably make a few 5th and 6th graders at Williamstown Elementary I'm really happy by saying out loud on television that they added a new phrase to my vocabulary, which is booger side down. And yes, I said the B word in an open session and on TV. That's how the swabs go into the test tube, as about 80 different 5th and 6th graders reminded me. So, you know, but we really do encourage families, please think about signing your child up for pool testing. If it's just a matter of you've been too busy to do the paperwork, the online form, which your principals have sent and are sending again here in the next couple of days, it honestly takes about 30 seconds to complete. And it's really just a good reassurance for us to know there's one more layer of protectiveness. And if you have questions or concerns about pool testing, you can certainly reach out to me, or you can reach out to your school principals or your school nurses. We likewise continue to urge all individuals who can be vaccinated to please get vaccinated. I suspect not everybody in our community and among the families that we serve would agree with you know, the school taking such a strong stance on this, but I firmly believe as a leader, as a dad, it's the right thing to do. So please get vaccinated if you are able to be vaccinated. Friday, September 10th, tomorrow is our deadline for our staff to get their vaccination status into our HR office. So we will be sharing out to the school committee the data of where we are with our staff vaccination rate. Our student vaccination rate at the middle and high school, as Mr. Schutz talked about, right now we're sitting at 54%. And as Carrie asked and Jake responded appropriately, that's as of today. When I put this slide together earlier in the week, we were like at 49%, and then we were at 51%. Nurse Nikki got me some data late in this afternoon, and we're up to 54%. So again, if your child is vaccinated and if you have not got that information into the school, please do so. And if your child's not been vaccinated, again, we're all at your service to talk about this. You know, it's not a high pressure sales job, but we really do believe that the more of our students get vaccinated, the more of a full school experience we can offer to our students and to their families. Having said that, very, very appreciative of the seriousness with which the staff, our students, and our families and caretakers have taken our pandemic preparedness with. So pleased that first day of school, people not wearing masks or wearing them incorrectly, simply not an issue. Our students really get this. Their families clearly really get this. Our staff really gets this. And just reminding everybody that what it's really all about this year is making absolutely certain that we don't have to have a class, let alone a whole school, not be in session in person, because we know that that is just not ideal for kids. And so we want to keep kids safe. We want to keep staff safe. We want to keep the community safe. And that's why we're doing this, because we want to stay in person and we want to have kids here creating learning for themselves and creating really good memories of being with people that they'll carry with them for the rest of their lives. Just a couple of bullets on looking ahead of things that we're working on. Courtney Tunis, the diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant that we've been working with on surveys, has a draft report that she's gotten back to me. We're going to be working on an October special school committee date for Courtney to present and discuss with the communities that we serve, not just our staff, not just our students, not just the parents and caretakers of our students, but with the entire community invited to a meeting to discuss what we learned from our Mount Greylock Regional School District Listening and Learning Project. And I can assure you, I think everyone will agree that we learned a great deal. We're also working, thanks to the school committee bringing concerns from the community, We are working with the Massachusetts Department of Transportation on possible options for improving the safety of the Mount Greylock Regional School entrance. Thank you for bringing those concerns to us. Thanks to Andrew Groff from the Community Development Office in Williamstown for helping me understand a little bit of the history. And we're actually working on a meeting with the Mass DOT folks from Lennox next week, an initial time to chat about, what our concerns are and what we might be looking for. And then, of course, we're going to be working this whole year on working with everybody who comes to or cares about the Mount Greylock Regional School District to ensure that we're operating smoothly and safely in person, including the activities that are so meaningful to students, things like athletics, things like the arts. And so that will be work that we're undertaking for the full year. And with that, Christina, I am finished. And I wasn't keeping track of time, but hopefully I was in the ballpark.
21 minutes, Jake.
Oh. Any question? Jose, I see a hand, and then Steve.
Thanks, Jake, and thanks as always for your very thoughtful and informative presentations.
Thank you.
The question I have, Jake, is a bit of a follow-up from the question that Carrie asked Patrick earlier, and it's, I know it's one that I'm sure you and your team have thought a lot about, but myself as a parent and many parents in our district have been worried about learning loss as a result of a 1.5 years of remote to hybrid education. I don't think we have heard yet about a plan to assess and address learning loss that might have arisen. I know MCAS, the abbreviated MCAS results, are going to be released later in the fall, but could you report back to us about whether there are plans to assess and address learning loss?
Yeah, there are, Jose, and I think the school folks feel like we're taking it on, but it's tough to quantify and report out. And we talked about it several times last year, but clearly not in enough detail. We've had the MCAS results now for several weeks, and so the principals and teachers have been digging into those, and they're actually almost across the board better than we were expecting them to be, quite honest, given what is out there in the realm of concern. All of our teachers and schools and their planning for the summer, there's always a time at the beginning of the year where you're assessing where people are relative to where they need to be at the end of the year. I'm trying to answer this eloquently. I think to some degree, we agree that it's a big concern and we share the concern. There's also a piece of this that this is what educators do. This is what educators do when times are great. This is what educators do when times are difficult. So we do have the acceleration roadmap that the state has provided us as one pathway to get here. Our initial data thus far, whether it's grades, whether it's student self-reporting, work with families, or even now throwing MCAS into the mix, is that, and I think even on the academic research side, the learning loss for some demographics of students was a very real, very significant thing. The learning loss for students that were in mostly stable home environments where the connection to school stayed relatively constant, in spite of all the zigs and zags from last year, the learning loss simply is not proving out to be as drastic as I think I worried about as a dad, my wife worried about as a mom. So, I know it's an unsatisfactory answer, and it was when I gave it last year, but I think we're trusting our educators to do what educators do, which is to take the data, including And at the elementary school, there's some very formal. As I was helping pull test kids the other day, the Dibbles stuff was going on in the hallway, and I felt awfully because I was interrupting it with booger side down. But you know, so there's much more formal ways at the elementary school, but really across the board, kindergarten through grade 12, it's teachers doing what they do, which is finding where their kids are, meeting them there, and then bringing them along, and using response to intervention, figuring out who needs a little bit more and a little bit more of what.
Just Jake, thank you so much for that answer. Just to follow up with a summary, just to make sure I understood it. Given what you have available to you and your team has available to you in terms of data, it seems that most of our children have done okay, and that we have in place a system to address, when needed, any learning losses that might be present within a child, and our teachers have the support they need and the flexibility they need to do just that. I think that's what I understood from what you said, and I'm going to just follow up with just a brief question about the children that you highlighted that may have suffered serious, significant learning losses. Are we planning as a district to run our summer programs this upcoming summer, just like we ran them for those children who may need a bit more assistance outside the normal academic year?
First of all, your summary of what I said was much better said with about a quarter of the words than I did. So thank you for that. I hope the minutes reflect your words, not my words. But so thank you for that summary. And yeah, again, and this is true for K through 12. Our summer programming was an open enrollment, but it was open after it was targeted. And there were great efforts at outreach and recruiting, I think is the right word, to make sure we had the students who most needed to be there this summer to be there. And I'm pretty confident that, whether it's through our budget preparations for the upcoming year, where my pretty confident statement comes in is I think the state saw the merit in supporting summer programming this summer on a wide scale basis. And I would suspect that some of the state level ESSER money is going to be going into supporting that again. And so I would anticipate our folks that actually helped develop and run the summer program this year, they had a proposal on my desk by like August 1st about here's what we'd like to do next summer. So, and I think that's well matched by feedback we had from families that this was a good thing. And so, yes, I would anticipate that we will be offering perhaps more targeted in terms of remediation and catch up next summer, but I also think maybe somewhat expanded in terms of exploration and acceleration as well.
Thanks, Jake.
Thank you. Steve, I think your hand was up, and then Julia.
Yes, and so I just wanted to go back to the numbers on preliminary enrollments.
Yes.
And I don't know if you want to punch them up for the screen while I ask the question or comment, or if you want me to.
Nope. Let me just get the right slides,
Perfect,
Steve.
perfect. I took a screenshot, so I don't know what slide it was.
There we go.
That's the one. So hopefully you can put this in good perspective for me. Long term, I think looking at the elementary school numbers is the more important part than looking at the total district enrollment, as this gives us a sense of the pipeline. Is that a reasonable way to view things?
Yes, I would agree, Steve.
And so if we do that, the Lanesboro numbers are essentially where we were in 2018, 2019. And if the Williamstown numbers are going up by another 10, that's comparable to a high. And again, the 409 from 2019, 2020, that actually includes the numbers from before COVID started. So those are the numbers that do not affect any changes in enrollments from people going to homeschool. So these numbers are extremely positive.
Yeah, I think it's a, I'm very heartened at these numbers. I think tomorrow we have a countywide superintendent's meeting. I'm really interested. I'm interested selfishly just to do some comparison of notes, because we have been feeding the roundtable, the superintendent's roundtable, our enrollment numbers. So I'm interested to see if this is something that's true across the county, if this is something that's true, more true here. But I think we're going to, and whether it's COVID related and people wanting to get away from more urban places and be in a place like this, whether it's just confidence in kind of, or being pleased with what we're trying to do here in combination with new housing opportunities opening up. I am heartened by these numbers and look forward to seeing where they are in October, looking forward to seeing where they are in March when we do our second run through of a real formal count in the year. And like you, I'm really optimistic about these elementary numbers. That speaks of good things to come.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. Julia and then Carrie.
Yeah, thank you. Also, thank you for such a thorough update. You talked about learning loss and how the different types of information you have to assess as much as you can the learning loss. Yeah. But obviously we know another big impact of COVID is the social emotional well-being and the mental health of our students. And it was wonderful to hear from Cindy and from Nolan and from Jake how happy kids were to be back. I know my own were thrilled to be back in school. But I wonder if you do have some form of an assessment to, and maybe you didn't have a baseline like you might have academically, but if you have some sort of assessment to be seeing where kids are and then the supports in place to help them in that domain, not just academics.
Yeah, Julia, and to just backtrack a little bit and talk about academics, you did hear Nolan talk about creating additional intervention time in his schedule. Cindy has done the same thing. And so there were good efforts just in how the day is structured to make sure that students that need extra support have time to get that extra one-on-one support or small group support. Quite honestly, I'm much more comfortable in the supports that we have to offer kids on a social and emotional side of the ledger than I am in our formal preparedness to measure that. Does that make sense? I mean, we've added an additional social worker at Mount Greylock, an additional social worker at Lanesboro Elementary. Cindy, again, felt like she was well-staffed in that regard. So I think we have the ability to have supports, or we have the supports in place. But like I said, in terms of formally inventorying that, I think we're really depending on families and schools communication among one another, and then students' openness to expressing, here's where I'm struggling, what can you do to support
me? I don't know if it feels like it would be useful data to somehow capture the difference in, hands being raised for support now. Versus, I imagine counselors have some sort of log of how many students they've seen in different years, but just to understand that shift that we may be seeing. And sometimes when you have more counselors, you see more students, which actually just means the need was there. So I feel like that's a that's information that could be valuable as we think about what our schools' needs are.
Thank you, Julia. Carrie, I think your hand was up.
I'm okay, Jake. I can.
Okay.
Thanks.
Oh, thank you, everybody. Thanks for your attention and questions and ideas.
Thank you, Jake. Okay, next up on our agenda is the Finance Subcommittee report. So I will turn it over to Carrie Green.
Great, thanks, Christina. So there's quite a bit of information in your packets from the Finance Subcommittee. I'm hoping that you've had a chance to look through it. We have the document that we've been working on for several weeks now that have outstanding questions that we started in the Finance Subcommittee. I incorporated some feedback from Julia Bowen, some feedback from the Finance Subcommittee, and that is in your packet along with the original document from Julia that she sent for our consideration. You also have the status of the Williams gift, what we've spent, what we expect to spend. You don't have the status of the gift in terms of what we expect to see available. We don't have that information, and we won't have it until October. We hope to have it at the October meeting, but we can keep you posted on that. And then let me just go back and see if I'm missing anything. So the payment history. What is this document? Yeah, and then the payment summary. So the detail of what we've spent the gift on, and then the summary of how we've expended it. And thank you to Joe and Joe's team for putting all of that documentation together. Very much appreciated. So we had another Finance Subcommittee meeting this afternoon, and we talked about the status of the votes on the agenda. We also talked about the alternative to the artificial turf. So I'm going to try to frame this, and I'm going to try to do it kind of quickly. So basically, the project that has been on the table for the school committee for a few years is one that supports an installation of artificial turf and potentially also a track, which is also an artificial surface. That project has been supported a couple of times by previous iterations of the school committee. It initially came out of a phase 2 subcommittee. There's a lot of documentation about why that project was supported, why that project was proposed, and then all the various discussions that have happened in public forums, in school committee meetings, in finance committee meetings, and various meetings. And this has gone on for a couple of years. Our goal tonight is not to rush anything, but to encourage the committee to essentially take a position on whether to continue to move forward with the project that has been on the table for an artificial turf and hopefully also a track, should the funds be available come October. The reason that vote is first on the agenda, there are a couple of reasons. One is that we have the documentation to move forward with that project. It's gone out to bid a couple of times. Both times that the school committee voted to send it out to bid, the bids came in higher than were hoped for. The second time that happened was last fall, and as a result, the committee voted to take care of the ADA compliance and safety issues. So that work is being done. It's currently being done. I know some folks think that we're actually installing an artificial turf field right now because of all the work that's being done on the fields. I can assure you that's actually not happening. We are taking care of the ADA, Title IX, and other safety issues for our existing fields. We are not currently building a new field. Having said that, we have the documents that were previously put out to bid. We know those need to be revised. That's not going to take a lot of work, but it is money that needs to be spent, which means the school committee would need to vote to approve it. That's the first vote that's on the agenda. The thinking around this is that if the school committee decides to move forward with revising these documents, that is the decision to support the project, the artificial turf project and the track. All right. It's not actually in the sense that we're not building an artificial turf field or a track with this vote. We're simply moving forward in that process toward that project. The first step of that process is to revise these documents, and we need to spend money in order to do it. So the motion that we're recommending is to direct the district to continue down the path of estimating and bidding an artificial turf and track as previously designed and bid, or not, meaning if the vote doesn't pass, that's the or not. So with that in mind, we did at the previous finance subcommittee meeting, and I think we might have discussed this at the school committee as well. We looked at what that might look like if the committee decides not to go down that path. Joe was able to touch base with some folks in the area that we've worked with on grass fields, and to get a better sense and a little more information for the committee of what it means to do natural grass fields, what our options are, not necessarily what that might cost, but at least what we might be able to consider if we wanted to go a different direction. So I'm going to turn it over to Joe to share some of that information.
Sure. In terms of natural grass options, what was discussed was the spectrum that natural grass can exist on for athletic fields. On one end of the spectrum would be the fields that we have right now, where there are fields that are put on top of soil that was already there on site, minimal grading and effort to try to turn those into something that is perfectly playable. On the other end of the spectrum is an engineered grass field, which is what the community saw within forum discussions 2 summers ago now. That type of engineered grass field is what you see at colleges and professional teams that choose to have kind of the ultimate playable natural grass field. It's actually built in a way that's similar to a synthetic turf field, in that you have extensive drainage underneath, a layer of what is most commonly sand, actually, and grass is coaxed to grow in sand through amendments and fertilizer, and very carefully taken care of to ensure its survival. So that's, the other end of the spectrum. And then in the middle would be a natural grass field where you don't put in a significant drainage underlayer, but you instead replace the topsoil, you carefully grade it, you add drainage around the field to encourage water running off the field into the drainage and then away. And that's the middle ground. PJC Organics, the company that Carrie referenced at the start, is the company that we've used for trying to amend and improve our current fields. And that type of field is that middle ground is where they tend to advise people to go, which is the type of field where the least expensive fields, you're paying $50,000 to do all of your various things to get a field ready. On the high end, you're paying $1 million or a couple $1 million to get a field ready. And then in the middle, you're paying on the order of hundreds of thousands of dollars somewhere to get a field ready. And so that, Carrie, was that what you were looking for as far as the spectrum of options?
Great, thank you, Joe.
Yep.
So we have these two different directions that we can go in, and we have an opportunity tonight to discuss some pros and cons, if that's what the committee would like to do. What I'm not sure we've done recently is to ask ourselves the question of what is the problem that we're trying to solve. And for me, that's a pretty important question, right? So the problem that we're trying to solve, the question that the phase 2 subcommittee ended up, the question they ended up focusing on, what the problem was playability, right? We have fields that aren't playable, and they're not playable for enough of the year that our teams can use them, and we end up having to bus them to other fields. If we're solving for playability, is it possible to get 75% of the way there, or even 70% of the way there, with really well designed and maintained organic fields? I don't think you'll get 100% of the way there because we live in New England, but we could get a good ways further than we are now, because we know that we have the other end of the spectrum. If we were to design fields that are in the middle, that have good soil and good drainage and are very well maintained, we're going to get a lot closer to having playable time than what we have now. If the question is that we're trying to solve is what is most in line with the values of the Mount Greylock Regional School District as an educational community, I'm not sure the synthetic field is the answer, although we did discuss this in the finance subcommittee today. And you can really look at it from different perspectives. And this was what Stephanie was referencing in her comments earlier. That one way of looking at it, and I'm just going to relay the conversation, is looking back to the building project and the visioning exercises that we did in terms of sustainability, the green charrettes that we did as a community. There was a lot of community outreach, talking about how the new building could and would potentially interact with the natural environment. It was very high up on the priority list of the school building committee to make the greatest use of the natural environment in a way that the old building, for those of you who are familiar with it, looked inward. We wanted to look outward. We wanted to have access to the views, access to the light, the natural light coming in. We wanted the art studio to be able to open the doors and look out into the vista. So there was a lot of attention paid, and there was a lot of community input. We also focused on the financial impact to the communities, obviously, and that's something that we've already talked a lot about, so we don't really need to belabor that, I don't think, tonight, unless folks on the committee want to talk about that again. We talked about what is the educational vision, right? So there was an educational visioning group. They wrote the educational plan. How do these fields fit into the educational vision? Those are questions Julia has raised. So I guess that's another way of looking at it, is how does this question of fields fit into the visioning of the district as expressed through all of the community input and feedback and discussions during the building project. That's the last time we really did a lot of community, thinking as a outreach. One of the comments that Ursula made was that, another focus actually of the building project was technology, and synthetic fields are considered technology. They are considered to be, if not state of the art, and that was one of the things that Stephanie was saying, maybe was perhaps not the best term to use, but if not state of the art, then at least something where the technology is thought by many to improve the state of the natural field, right? Improve on it, depending on how you assess improvement, right? So all of these things are subject to discussion. I'll just say a lot of them are subjective, right? But there are some things that are quantitative or qualified by numbers. And I think we all have to just realize that if we don't go the synthetic turf direction, we will not be maximizing playability. But I will, again, just say, is that what we really want to be maximizing? So we've been handed this question, and it didn't generate from the school committee. It was given to the school committee. And I don't think the school committee has ever owned it fully. So I'm just going to ask tonight that we as a group, or I'll suggest that we're agreeing that the question is playability if we go the synthetic turf direction. Maximum playability. I think there is, at the risk of repeating myself, I think one of these other grass field options, we could achieve far greater playability than what we have now. I just want to end with one story, which I also shared in the finance subcommittee. So when we were nearing the end of the building project, I was approached by a parent in the community who is a parent of athletes, and was asked the question, so now that we're nearing the end of this building project, what about the fields? And I just said, what about the fields? The fact of the matter was that the Massachusetts School Building Authority does not reimburse districts for playing fields. They don't reimburse beyond a very low percentage for any kind of landscape work, and playing fields are never part of that equation. So that was always going to be like the next phase. But what about the fields, right? Is that still the question? Like, what about the fields? How do the fields fit in with the vision of the district? So that's where I'm kind of running full circle back to, whatever year that was. It's quite a long time ago now. What is our vision as a school committee? So I'll leave it there. Jose, and then Julia.
Thanks, Carrie, and thank you for leading all this work and with your colleagues, our colleagues on the finance subcommittee, and to Joe for doing the research that we have before us. I have I think been pretty consistent in voicing skepticism about moving towards the use of artificial turf on our campus. We have heard, I think, from a wide range of voices in our communities about pros and cons about, of turf versus organic grass, organically managed grass. They all seem to reflect what I think we all, know to be at least a current truth about the importance of athletics to our district and to our students and to our parents. And, we've heard that, from Lindsay today that although numbers are down, there's still a substantial number of our kids who do play sports and who do, utilize the facilities, the fields that we have at our disposal. We also heard, I think, from our community, from folks who are orthopedics, about the number of injuries kids have suffered playing on the surfaces, the poor surfaces as they stand right now. And we also heard from our community about the difficulty of managing grass and ensuring or guaranteeing a playable surface, principally during those spring months, right? When the frost is melting, the soils are wet, the roots are not well set. One member of our community who helps manage the services at the Taconic Golf Club didn't believe that we could have a playable surface in the spring, no matter how hard we try, if we went with grass. The college, our track and field team utilizes artificial surface at Williams College and the track around Williams College. So there's a precedent, at least, for our community and our kids for playing on these surfaces. Speaking to the potential resource that a turf could provide our community from, potentially year-round playability, but also being a community resource for, you can imagine a whole wide range of events. And then I'm going on and on and on here, but it seems to me there's a lot of momentum. I have been very skeptical of going the route of turf for a number of different reasons, principally around the potential environmental costs of turf. But I respect, my colleagues on this committee and members of our community who I think have thought long and hard about, we have to believe that proponents or parents who have argued for turf don't want to see their kids exposed to harmful toxins or to be injured. So we have to give folks, a genuine benefit of the doubt. So I think I'm speaking for as long as I am, because I do hope we take advantage of some momentum that the most recent committee vote on this matter seemed to give us. I know parents are eager to see the district take advantage of the very generous gift that the college gave us to improve, the educational experiences of our students. Thanks, Carrie.
Thanks, Jose. Julia?
Thank you both, Carrie and Jose, for framing this in the ways that you have. Carrie, your comments about what problem we're trying to solve really resonates for me in the question I was asking last fall about where does this fit in with our strategic plan? And so going back to the point of saying the building project was fitting into a vision for the district was super helpful and grounding in the kind of values that our district has expressed. And so when I think about all that Jose just shared and all the complexity of the issues that we've been hearing for many years, and certainly with this committee, at least since last fall, I think about how do we optimize across all of the variables? Or if we only choose one, such as playability, the negative impact on the other variables that we had committed to, or the district had committed to back in 2016, are optimized at a much lower level. So maybe playability drops to 70% or 80%. Maybe we do more than one field, so we get better playability across multiple fields. But maybe we get playability up to 80%, but we keep our commitment to the other values that were set. And so my concern about only responding to the need for playability means we are not responding to the expressed desire to demonstrate values around financial responsibility or the environment. And then I add to that, trying to look at the more current data where it's possible. So Joe, thank you for collecting that information you got from the company you did. I think about the report we received from Thomas Bartels about greater incidences of injuries on turf fields for high school students, especially playing soccer and football. I think about the UN climate report that came out the week we talked about this back in August. And I think, and this is, I think, where I was coming from when I said, if we're going to move down this path, I want to know we've done it with as much information. And I know that sounds like I'm just looking to drag things out. I'm not. I actually have tried to remain open to turf fields all along. Funny, I actually voted for it in December, but now I'm really saying, no, I'm not ready to move forward right now, because I am getting that picture of the multiple values and in places competing values that we're trying to achieve as a district. And I want to name that. I think by saying competing, I agree with Jose. I think everybody involved in this conversation from the get-go shares those values. It's just, this is a point where we have to individually think about the priority of those values or how much we need to meet each value. But that collectively, I know that those who are the biggest synthetic turf advocates do care about our environment. But I look at this and I say, how do we optimize across all of those and not just focus it all in one?
Thanks, Julia. Steve?
Remember to unmute. I guess I'll just say very briefly that, these are issues that we've been looking at with community input for years. And I agree completely that depending on how you put your priorities, you are going to end up with different decisions on what you think is right and best for the district. We're in a very fortunate position that most districts would be envious of, that we actually have money that was given to us explicitly by the college for something like this. We do have the funds to explore something like this. We haven't asked the towns to pay for the new administrative building, which is several $1 millions. We haven't had the town paying for the trailers and stuff like that. I am concerned about doing more and more studies and spending more and more of the funds on study after study. I understand that it needs to be done at some point, but at another level, at some point, we have to decide, do we have enough information to make the call? And for me, I think things have changed a lot since we started the building project. I think the pandemic has really shown us how important it is to have access to outdoor options. As I said in a previous meeting, we started the last school year with the students remote, but able to do athletics outdoors. And for me, the playability is such an important part of this conversation. In terms of the environmental impact, there have been changes made in the plans based on input from members of the community. And so I do think there has been work around those lines, but this is why I strongly support both the artificial turf as well as the track. It's just we are fortunate that we have this gift, we have the funds to do it. We've waited more time to let the endowment grow, and the longer we wait, the less opportunity the children are going to have to actually take benefit of this. Thanks.
Thanks, Steve. Curtis.
I had a quick clarifying question just because of so many things going through my head at this time. If we do the add alternate or the inclusion of the track, is the track an artificial substance track?
It is. Yep.
And the reason I ask that is that if the playing field is going to be ringed by an artificial substance track, is it?
It won't.
Okay.
They're two different locations.
Great.
So do you remember where the old track was, Curtis? Over by the cross-country entry area.
Right.
That's where the idea was to build a new track on top of where the old track was.
Gotcha. Thank
The
you.
field itself would be behind the new administrative building.
Right. Thank you.
There was an earlier drawing that had the track ringing the field, but that's not the latest.
Yeah, I couldn't remember which was.
That's okay.
Right on.
Yep. Julia?
So I think Curtis raises, for me, an important question. My understanding, and here is where I'm open to and want to learn more, is that while a track would be an artificial material, it's not one that has to be replaced every 8, 10, 12 years. And therefore you're not left with a giant piece of plastic that you have to somehow recycle. And it's not one that has infill that leaches into potentially the groundwater or nearby streams. So while it's an artificial, and so I offer this because to me that my initial reaction might be, oh, well, if we're going to talk about something artificial, we're going to talk about something artificial. I don't know if they're actually the same. I don't know if they have the same environmental impact, negative environmental impact.
Joe?
I think the difference would probably be framed as there really isn't a ton of variation in your options with the track, whereas there is a lot of variation with your options in an athletic playing field. But certainly it's a rubber surface on top of an asphalt and or concrete subsurface. So it is what it is. But I don't think you've got as much of a range of options in terms of implementing a track as you do with an athletic field.
Another difference, of course, is that you're not using the plastic grass, which has a tendency, I guess, to to break or shed. The carpet sheds. So that's and the carpet itself, I mean, is what you're recycling. So in terms of adding to the landfill, I think you're right, Julia, that a track doesn't have a huge piece of carpet that you're essentially rolling up after 8 or 10 years and putting in a landfill, although you'd really rather recycle it if you could, kind of thing. Yes, Christina.
Thank you. I really appreciate what everyone is saying. I truly feel like I have been and continue to be more in a place. I would echo more of Julia's sentiments. I think we cannot say we can recycle the grass turf at its end of its life. It's probably going to get rolled up and put someplace on our campus because it costs money to get rid of it. And that is my biggest concern. It's like if we have wonderful water filling stations, so we don't have to bring plastic bottles into the school. If we had to throw all of our plastic material into our backyards, would we do it? Probably not. And I struggle with that because we do look at that sustainability piece of our vision as a district. And I do also echo what Jose's saying. And I have been on this committee now, and I've had these discussions, and they're exhausting. And I want to give the kids everything they want. I'm just not sure that I've ever been comfortable with the artificial grass piece of it.
Thanks, Christina. Ursula, did you want to say something?
Sorry, no, I was looking at the agenda. If I raise my hand, I apologize.
We are encroaching on, we're here at 33 minutes with this discussion, so I don't know if we want to try to move it forward.
Sure. So would someone like to make this motion or a different motion?
Carrie, can I just ask a question? Sorry.
Yeah.
I think you said before, if we did not vote to move forward with the current, artificial turf, that we'd have to go and do more studies, or we'd have to go and do a study. Can you just elaborate on that?
Sure.
I just want to understand.
So, right, and this is what Steve was speaking to as well. So we do have to spend money if we move forward with the artificial turf because we need to revise those plans. If we decide not to move forward with the artificial turf, then I think we open the door to, okay, what do we want to do? And then at that point, I think we need to decide, do we want to install a new field in this place where we've been talking about artificial turf? And if so, we need to get an estimate. We need to, or do we want to hire someone to evaluate the entire campus and say, within 5 years, we want to bring the entire campus up to a grade of play that is 50% higher than it is now, right? That's our dream, or 80% higher, I don't know, right? So we need to make it, we're not going to vote, sorry, but Mosquito, we're not going to vote tonight, I don't think, on the alternative use of the capital gift, but we may want to discuss what that could look like if we decide we don't want to go forward with the grass or with our synthetic turf.
So it kind of sounds like if we vote no, then we're back to square one, right? Then what do we do as far as the fields go?
We're back to square one, but without the synthetic turf. I think this is the time to take it off the table if we want to take it off the table, because that way we really can focus our energies on alternatives. We wouldn't necessarily be taking the track off the table. I think the track would need to be a different discussion. I think if we could focus, I mean, that's my own opinion, that but it has been raised by others here, if we move forward with the synthetic turf, I think we're also wanting to include the track with that. But if we don't move forward with this synthetic turf, if we say we're taking synthetic turf off the table, we want to consider other options, we just don't want it, I don't think we're excluding the track, and nor do we have to. Julia.
How does this vote fit into our discussion last time about the list of questions that we would still be looking into?
Sorry, a vote last time?
No, we had our discussion in August about wanting to get responses to the list of questions before we think about moving forward. And I know we heard from Joe potentially on the organic natural grass, but there were other questions as well. And now it feels like we're taking this vote that I thought might have been an October vote without all those answers.
Right. I think that, well, I'm not going to speak for the rest of the subcommittee. I think the document that has all of the questions, that brings together your questions and the finance subcommittee questions, is a way to give the committee a sense of what may be left unanswered, but still ask the committee to take a vote. If there are too many questions left unanswered, I think you're going to vote against the synthetic turf. If you're okay with the questions, maybe either you feel that you do have the answers that you're looking for, or you're okay with the fact that we'll figure that out as we move forward in this process, then you're going to vote in favor of the synthetic turf. We don't have to vote tonight, but I think that the purpose, and Jose said, sorry, I'll get to you in just a second. The purpose of scheduling the vote for tonight was so that when the balance on the Williams gift was made available to us next month, we could hit the ground running. If you would like to postpone the vote for another month, I don't know what information, we would need to know very specifically what information you would need as a committee member to be able to take a vote 1 month from now as opposed to tonight. Jose?
Yeah, thanks, Carrie. I just wanted to clarify that a vote, if this committee chooses to pass the motion to, to seek bids on an artificial turf and track, that still doesn't commit the district to paying for it and building it.
Correct.
And in the process of requesting bids, could we, in addition, request from bidders information and about the materials that they're proposing to use in terms of what the artificial turf will contain, whether it will have PFOAs in them or not, things that are of genuine concern to parents whose kids are going to be playing on this surface. Is that could we ask a potential bidders to clarify the quality of the products that they plan to install, as well as, and this is probably a pipe dream, some clarification about means of disposal, or ideally, the possibilities of recycling the materials that they plan to use in the future.
Joe?
Sure. So 2 answers to that. By the time you go out to bid, you need to specify something in enough detail that everybody's bidding on the same thing. So it can't be a choose your own adventure type bidding process. So that's the role of a designer or an architect, as opposed to a company bidding on a project. And then the second thing is that in terms of understanding the recyclability of various products, that would again be something that either a design team or we ourselves would need to conduct.
So just to quickly follow up then, Joe, in the revision that if this committee does approve this motion, the revision that would take place, would that be led by us, or do we have a design team or an architect that we can consult with who can help draft an appropriate call for proposals?
The possible motion that was put into the agenda is really just to try to limit the scope of what the district administration would be putting effort into. And a part of that is trying to understand, over time, there have been a lot of changes, and even over the course of a 2-hour, one meeting's 2-hour conversation, the perspectives that an employee of the district might think are being prioritized. And I think understanding the priorities, that's the most valuable thing that we could receive, so that we can do something with it. And so this here is, I think this motion is more geared towards, twice the school committee had said, synthetic turf field and hopefully track, let's go do it. And the question is that still the impression of the committee, or does the committee have a separate kind of path that it wants to be on? Because I think that when you talk to the employees of the district within the coaching co-curricular realm, they'd be saying, we just want facilities. We want fields that we can play on, that we can be confident in. We want to track. Please do something. And what it is in some ways secondary, but perhaps that's because they're not in the position to make decisions themselves for the district with this gift. And so I think that's reality of where we are. And so just trying to come up with the pinpoint things that we can do, or limiting the track that we're barreling down, is, I think that's the hope right now. To get, let's say the committee wanted to put an artificial turf and track out to bid. The process would be, we would need the design team to modify its design to fit the current campus and the current potential. We would need to have them, instruct them to get updated estimates on what that would cost, so that then, coupled with the value of the gift as of right now and those costs, the committee could say, okay, I'm prepared to put something out to bid because I think that we can get what we want. Or look at it and say, no, we shouldn't put this out to bid. We need to value engineer it, or we need to wait until the gift is large enough. So there are a number of tedious steps between here and even putting it out to bid. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, thanks, Joe.
Yeah.
Julia?
Thank you. And apologies, Christina. I know I was the one who said, can we make sure we stay on time?
We're just eating up all the time that everybody else gave up.
Right. So I recognize that the committee has voted a couple times before. This committee, aside from Ursula, voted. But I do want to name that the conditions under which we voted were different. In that I felt great pressure, important pressure, to respond to the need for Title IX and ADA compliance. And I, at the time, thought we've got to vote for this in order to make sure we meet those two requirements. I was new and I didn't realize we could have done it without it. I also want to deeply respect the work of the school personnel, to Joe's point, who have said we just want, the facilities. And when I just want to make sure I'm clear on the questions that haven't been answered, so that I think about this in my own risk profile for my own vote. So we don't know, we won't know the full cost, but we don't know how it will be, like what will happen when we need to turn over the field in 8, 10, 12 years. I.e. we don't know how it will be recycled or what we would have to pay for it to be just taken away and put into a landfill. In the session that Carrie and I sat in and that we didn't share with everybody, but there was a session we sat in on Tuesday night where they've said these have never been recycled. There is no place right now to recycle them. So that's a risk out there that we don't know about and that we're not going to know about. But we don't know how this fits into the school's long-term capital plan. We don't know who would pay for a replacement down the line. So by taking a vote tonight, we would be taking those risks of letting things unfold as they come. And I just want to make sure I'm clear on those things, that we don't know those things, or if I want to make sure I didn't miss any information anywhere.
Well, I think you're right that we don't know if there will ever be a way to recycle these things, although it seems like an awfully good business opportunity to me. So why someone hasn't figured this out, I don't know. We know that the district could potentially agree to absorb the replacement cost with long-range planning, either through the capital gift or through the district's own funds. So we know that the district could take that on, but we cannot commit future committees necessarily to that decision. So yes, it's always a risk, but we could make clear that that is our intention, is to have the district pay for the cost of any kind of renewal. Jose and then Steve.
Yeah, thanks, Carrie. I think it's going to be difficult to find two more deliberative people than Julia and myself. And we probably can do laps around one another as we examine every corner of this debate. In following on from how Julia put it, the number of unknowns that we still haven't sorted out for ourselves remain the unknowns that the committee had before itself when it made a vote to continue on this path. And I only bring that up because I fell on the short end of that vote. But I respect my colleagues now as I did then, and respect the fact that you considered the many unknowns regarding this this possibility, this opportunity for artificial turf. So, and I think it's important for us to have a vote on this motion, because I presume if we don't pass it as a committee, that will be, we'll speak very clearly and very publicly about our interest to pursue artificial turf or not, and certainly would remove it. It seems like it would take it off the table quite, I think, importantly, in a very public and a public way. So what I'd like to do, if it's not too early, Carrie, because I think the discussion can still continue, is I'd like to make a motion to direct the district to continue down the path of estimating and bidding in artificial turf and track as previously designed and bid, if I'm reading that correctly.
Great, thanks, Jose. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, then we can continue discussion. Steve.
I just had one brief point in terms of when you were discussing about committing future committees. We've actually had some discussions like this, I believe, on the capital gift when we were putting aside $1 million for future projects and repairs and whatnot. And so we plan accordingly.
Christina, there's a hand raised from a member of the public, and this isn't public comment, so I don't know, do you want to just dismiss that or
Yes.
let people know?
Yep, it is. We no longer have public comment open, so we don't take
Right.
public comments.
With our apologies.
Yes.
Julia.
Two quick points. One, I recognize and appreciate the concept that we can't define what future committees need to do. But I guess in that same regard, past committees' votes then, how should they influence this committee? So I don't think we have to be beholden to those past committee votes by the same logic.
Yeah.
The second point I just want to make is, as the person who actually voted for this in December, I think there's more information now. And I think to change one's vote because you've collected more information is a reasonable thing to do. So the injury rates, the climate, what we're learning about climate, even in the last 6 months, I just want to name that. So I had the information before, and I had the pressure of Title IX and ADA that are now gone, and more information. I just want to name that.
Thank you, Julia. Is there any more discussion? All right, let's vote.
Oh, and
Does
no.
anyone need to hear does anyone need to hear it again? It's in our agenda. The motion. Did you want to hear it again, Ursula? Yes, okay. Jose, can you read it again?
Yeah, the motion that I made is the motion that's in the agenda, which is to direct the district to continue down the path of estimating and bidding in artificial turf and track as previously designed and bid.
Okay, sorry, Julia?
Bowen, no.
Conry, no.
Constantine, aye.
Elfenbein, aye.
Green, aye.
Lloyd, aye.
Miller, aye.
All right, that vote passes. Thanks, everyone, and thanks, Christina, for giving us a little extra time there. So again, this doesn't commit the district to installing any kind of artificial turf. It simply puts us into the next step, which is to update the design or modify the design, update the estimates. Those would then come back to the committee and we would make a decision. That's the next vote that we would be looking at, a decision to put it out to bid. This does not technically prevent us from looking into alternatives, but I would caution the committee to not do that at this time. I think that's the reason we took the vote right, was so that we could limit the effort made by the administration, so that we could choose a direction to go and be ready when the capital gift funds were made known to us. So if it's all right with the committee, I would suggest that we hold off on further exploration of natural grass options right now and do what the vote implies, which is to take this direction and see where it takes us. That, however, is not a decision that I would be comfortable making for the committee. Does that make sense? I mean, I think we were clear on that, but I just want to make sure that everyone is in agreement that that's the vote that we just took, is that for now, we're going to pursue this path.
Yep,
Yes.
I think it's pretty clear that's what that motion indicates.
Okay. All right. So we did have some discussion of alternative use of the capital gift. But again, that's, I guess, what I just said is that let's not continue that discussion now, since we just had a positive motion going in that direction. The renewal fund vote is here because there's some question. I think, I'm actually not sure about this, so someone might need to remind me. I think it's here because there's a question about whether when we voted to set aside $1 million for a renewal fund, whether, number one, that meant $1 million from the time of the vote or $1 million from the time of construction of the time that we voted on a project, a capital project. Number two, whether we wanted to name in our thinking about this renewal fund, whether it could be or should be used for renewal of said capital project, right? So that's what I'm thinking is on the agenda right now. I'm not sure we want to or need to spend a lot of time talking about it, or we need to take the vote, but it's on the agenda to give us the ability to further define the renewal fund if we'd like to do that tonight. Jose.
Thanks, Carrie. Just a question for I guess in terms of what's possible. The $1 million reserve that the committee voted to create, is there any precedent, or is it possible for us to commit to holding that as an endowment of sorts, and the money that can be earned from that endowment can then go into this renewal fund? Is that something that in which there's any precedent or something that we could do?
Right. So the 1 million remains in the college endowment.
Yeah. So I guess sorry, my question was if we keep it in the endowment and we imagine it being an endowment of sorts for the district, meaning as the money that is earned from that sitting in the college endowment creates a growing pot of funds, hopefully, that we can call upon for capital improvement and renewal.
That is the plan. That is the vote that was previously taken by the committee. And I apologize. We actually should have brought the vote up. I don't have it in front of me, but that is the vote that was taken. I think there was perhaps some conversation at various times that fund should not be used to renew, a synthetic turf field. That was not a vote by the committee, but it could be. There were other times when folks thought that it should be used for anything but athletic facilities, since this funding was going toward athletic facilities potentially, but I'm not sure that was ever really, so there has been discussion about whether we should try to constrain the renewal fund, which will grow. I mean, that's the beauty of having it in the Williams Endowment. It will continue to be a capital fund. So it won't be used for educational, like curricular purposes, but it can be used for capital improvements, repairs, restoration. Joe and his team have been working on the 3 to 5 to 10 year capital improvement. What are the needs going to be at Mount Greylock? It is a relatively new building. That's not to say that there won't be things that need to be replaced. So we have that information. We've talked about it in finance. What we know about is not substantial right now in terms of dollar figures.
So this conversation, Carrie, I think I misunderstood. Is it about whether that fund can or should be used in a potential replacement of the turf at some point in the future? Is that what we're?
Yeah, I think it's an opportunity for the committee to say, we are prepared to use the renewal fund to replace this synthetic turf field when and if needed, or when needed, right? Presumably $1 million now is not $1 million 8 years from now. So it won't be going solely for that use. But it's also an opportunity for the committee to say, that's enough of this capital gift being spent on a synthetic turf field. We don't want to see more money from this capital gift being used to replace it. You're going to have to find money somehow, somewhere else, or you should. So it's an attempt to define, perhaps constrain, or assure.
Got it. And
the community.
This is while knowing that this committee can't beholden any future committees to whatever, if we were to vote on this tonight.
I think that's right. It's always been very vague. I mean, I know we can't constrain future committees. We could write up language and we could ask the district to look into, whether there is an agreement that we can, create a legal agreement. I don't know. We haven't really talked about it. For instance, there's an agreement between Williams College and the Williamstown Elementary School. That's a renewal fund. Can only be used for capital expenses. I believe there are some constraints on that. I'm not positive. I haven't read it recently enough. We could perhaps ask the college to, I don't know. There are all sorts of options of what we could do. Tonight, I think it's more about taking the temperature of the committee and seeing if there are assurances or constraints that we want to make clear to the community. Julia.
So is it, I felt last time we had this conversation that it was effectively, there was a sum of money we knew we'd get a report on, or at that time we knew, but now we know we'll get a report on that. And the question is, are we going to agree on how much we set aside? And then the cost of the project has to come under that? Like, I'm trying to understand what the purpose is of defining this tonight. And if we could delay to maybe have a longer term understanding, I would be advocating for that, a longer term view of expenses.
Can I say something, Carrie?
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. Go ahead.
So the way I remember this from numerous conversations on several committees was that there was some concern from the town, I think select board and maybe finance committee, about how much money would be left when we were done with everything. So my thought was always that we were going to set aside a fixed amount so that when we work on the fields or anything like that, when we're done with all of that, there will be a fixed amount left that will not be touched in this initial stage. So for me, I was always viewing, I think we were having numbers ranging from 500,000 to 1.5 million as an amount that would be available to be set aside after the construction projects were done. Not being set aside at that moment, but just once we finish doing the bidding, we want to make sure we have at least that much set aside. I may be misremembering or misinterpreting what the conversations were, but that's how I seem to remember it. The other thing is, in terms of costs and expenses, we're not asking the towns for any money right now for the ADA Title IX stuff, which is stuff that the district needs to do. We didn't ask the towns for money for the administrative multipurpose building. It's important to keep all of this in context. I think I've asked this question before. This is the last comment. We have to be very careful how we use funds like this, in terms of, are we able to take out bonds or whatnot and use that rather than touching the money which is in the endowment.
In order to borrow money like that, we would need the permission of our towns.
Mm-hmm. But again, that is something that might be worth exploring in terms of then leaving the money in the endowment to go further.
Okay, so thank you, Steve. It sounds like unless anyone else wants to weigh in on this, it might be a good idea to continue this discussion at a later date. Great.
I think that's a great idea.
All right. Joe, I think you're up, but I'll turn it back to Christina and she can turn it over to you.
Next up on our agenda is the Business Administration Report. So I turn it over to Joe Bergeron.
Thank you. All right, I'll try to be concise. Current field project update. Noons, our construction firm, has done an incredible job of battling the weather, staying ahead of time, dealing with delays in procurement of items. They've been a real joy to work with. As of right now, the project is at 80 to 90% type completion. The backstops for the various fields, along with the dugouts, are on order, and hopefully they will arrive on time. But at the same time, that's the kind of thing that right now is never arriving on time. The good news is we do not need those backstops or those dugouts in place until the spring. So it's not as though hitting a precise install date is of critical importance for us right now. It will not impact any of our students or the district as a whole, if that is slightly delayed this fall. The other news is that some of the fine work around infields and final grading of things, that is still to come, but the team has really done a good job of getting well ahead of its early October deadline to complete the project as a whole. So that's the current field project update. Are there any questions on it? All right, grant updates. Christina, may I please share my screen?
Yes, I'm sorry about that.
No worries.
Did it work? No?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I just didn't want to do anything while the recording was stopped.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened.
All right, so hopefully you can see my screen. Is it large enough for everybody to see and understand the numbers? Well, not understand the numbers, but see the numbers. Okay. So in terms of grants, the big picture is that we have certain grants that I'm highlighting right now, where it is within our ability to reserve use of those and use them in a later fiscal year. So these are grants that were awarded to us in FY21, where these that I'm now highlighting right now are the amounts that we were awarded. This is the amount that we ended up using in FY21, and here is the amount for each available to us in FY22. So all in all, that picture is extremely healthy. And then in terms of FY22 grants, the update is all of our standard federal, state grants that the school committee might be accustomed to are in good shape. And we are finishing up all the paperwork that we need in order to receive those. And then we have the two ESSER grants, ESSER 2 and ESSER 3, following on ESSER 1 that we saw last year, ESSER standing for Elementary and Secondary Schools Emergency Relief. They are COVID-related special funds that we will not expect to receive annually going forward. Both are grants that are available to us for multiple years, FY22, FY23, and at least a portion of FY24 for both. And I think ESSER 3 is straight through FY24. These are two funds that we will certainly be using over multiple years. And so as we move towards the FY23 budgeting process, you'll see that those will be a part of our plans for next year. All of that is good news within the grants world. We are a district that was accustomed to budgeting for spending between $400,000 and $500,000 a year in grant funding. And we clearly have significant funds in excess of that available to us at the moment, which is good news for the work that we're trying to do to pull out of the pandemic, summer programming, and so on. Any questions on grants? All right. The good news in terms of FY21 closeout is that right now we are on track to submit all of our end of year report documents, as well as certify our various fund balances so that we can be in line with the total expenditures as well as the funds in reserve that we saw approved for the FY21 budget, and then augmented last September when we approved, when the school committee approved additional funds from tuition and the COVID-related grant expenditures. So we're on track there. We'll have another update in October as we get closer to submitting and certifying various values, but we feel like we're in good shape. We don't have any votes to put in front of you because we don't need to make any modifications right now to what the school committee would expect. So that was discussed at length in the finance subcommittee today, but we can spare the rest of the full committee from that. And I think that's all I had tonight.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah.
We're under 6 minutes unless people have questions for you.
It's fantastic.
Okay, moving on. The next item on our agenda is the MASC delegate selection. This is something, Carrie, where did she go? We lost Carrie. This is something we have to do yearly. Is that correct, Jake? I apologize. I'm still new to all of this.
Yes, the joint conference of the MASC, which is your professional organization, and the MASS, which is my professional organization, happens in November. It also serves as the annual meeting of the MASC, and there will be a slate of legislative priorities and things that you will be asked to consider and support. And it is really important that we're represented at this meeting, and it's really important that we have a voting member who can weigh in on behalf of Mount Greylock Regional at this meeting.
And this is the time of year that we have to do that because it kicks off soon. So yeah. Do we have a volunteer to be our MASC voting member?
One-time meeting? I don't think I understood what, is it one meeting or is it
so
like a
no,
term?
Sorry, this is actually a 3-day event. There's a conference that these joint, that these two committees co-host, and it happens in Hyannis every year, except last year because of COVID, it was virtual. This year, I believe it's a hybrid. So, and all members of the committee are invited to attend. We are all members as representatives of the committee. I've attended a bunch of times, and it's really a great opportunity to meet colleagues across the state. The vast representation is from the eastern part of the state, but there are a fair number of people from Berkshire County who attend, or from even, mid-state. I was a delegate last year. It's the first time that we've done this to my knowledge. And it is a great opportunity, as Jake said, to be represented, to have our voice heard. I'm happy to be the delegate again, but also I do plan to attend in person, but I'm also happy to have someone else be the delegate instead, since I did it last year.
Jose?
I was going to start up by saying that is a fantastic idea. And just to call out the absolute mayhem and shenanigans happening over your right shoulder, Christina, it is just fantastic.
Sorry about that.
Did you know Christina Foster?
I can't control the foster kittens. Julia?
I see we have a vote on the agenda, and I wanted to make a motion that Carrie be our delegate.
Thank you. Do I have a second on
This
that?
is Steve. I'll second.
Steve seconds. Great. Any discussion? Any further discussion on that?
I'll just ask a question. I was curious when that conference takes place.
Yeah. So it is always the beginning of November. And if you go on to the MASC website,
November 3rd through November
right, Wednesday,
6th. It's the 3rd through the 6th this year. Sorry, Carrie.
No, that's okay. Looks like my internet is unstable. And the delegate meeting, I forget which day it is. But there is a backup. We do also have to vote a backup delegate, I think. So if you're interested, Ursula, maybe you could do that. Or you could vote me down and you could be the delegate.
Okay. Why don't we go ahead and vote that motion?
Do we need to amend it to include a backup delegate?
Or can we, I think we do that.
A separate motion?
Yeah.
Great. Bowen, aye.
Conry, aye.
Constantine, aye.
Elfenbein, aye.
Green, aye.
Miller, aye. Sorry, Miller, aye.
Okay, that motion passes. So backup delegate. Do we have a volunteer?
I nominate Ursula if she's willing to do it. Or if she wants to do it, if she wants to do it.
Does that mean if Carrie becomes unable to go, is that what backup means? Okay, sure. Yeah, that sounds good.
And it's so great that it's hybrid. I will second that motion. Any further discussion?
I would just say, since it's hybrid, I would encourage us to, attend as possible.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Bowen, aye.
Conry, aye.
Constantine, aye.
Elfenbein, aye.
Green, aye. And it looks like the delegate assembly is on Saturday morning at 9 a.m.
Malloy, aye.
Miller, aye.
Thank you. That motion passes. Okay, next up on our agenda is the response to the open meeting law complaint, which we have in our packet. Jake, I wanted to ask you a question about this, just for clarification. In the last paragraph of the public complaint, it says either the JLMC should conduct its affairs in public unless it conducts business that falls under one of the acceptable uses of executive session, or the MOA should be redrafted to give either the school committee or the superintendent authority to decide when a mask mandate is lifted. And my understanding is you already have that authority. So I just
the same thought.
wanted to.
Yeah, I do have that authority to lift the mask mandate. However, just for clarity, the MOU .3, the masking requirement detailed in item 1 above will remain in effect until the JLMC for health and safety by majority vote votes to eliminate the mask requirement, or at the expiration of the 21-22 school year. So, you know, the purpose of the JLMC is to, you know, revisit data and to converse about really the approach the Mount Greylock Educators Association was, we're happy to agree to a mask mandate. And this was pre the state issuing a mask mandate. But we would like to be able to have conversation about when is the mandate over and why. And so that's really that spirit. But it is true that the school committee did give the superintendent the authority to bring masking on and to take masking away. But I think it is true that this JLMC does to some degree. I don't know if it trumps that or not, but I believe our attorney, as he's preparing the response to this alleged violation, will address that. And you will, of course, be given copies of that response to this effort to bring about clarification about, you know, whether this is a public deliberative body or not.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else have any questions before we move on? Okay. Oh, Steve. I can't see you. It's so confusing.
Sorry, it's not really a question. It's just more of a statement that I've been on the school committee for so many years, I no longer remember. And just, I think this joint task force is a wonderful advance for the district. And I think it's great that we have a structure in place where the administration, the school committee, the teachers, and the Board of Health can get together and talk. And so I just want to thank everybody again for the service that they've been doing.
Thanks, Steve. Okay. Do I have a motion to move into executive session with intent to return to open session per MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct contract negotiations with non-union personnel, superintendent, business administrator, director of special education services?
So moved.
Curtis moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
Julia seconds. Any discussion? All in favor?
Bowen, aye.
Conry, aye.
Constantine, aye.
Elfenbein, aye.
Green eye.
Malloy, aye.
Miller, aye.
Thank you. It is 8:57 and we are now moving into executive session, and we will declare we are alone once we are in our breakout room, which I'm hoping Joe can create.
Sure, and should I put up a flash screen?
Great.
Okay.
And do I have to pause the recording or does it automatically, do we know?
It will remain recording the main room, I believe.
Great, perfect. And clearly I'm really not alone. There's quite some frolicking happening behind me.
Best show in town, Christine.
And Christina, you will need to add yourself to that breakout room because you're the host.
Right.
So it's just room 1.
Let's see, did we get everybody back? We get everybody back? Everybody, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. If anyone's missing, please raise your hand. Okay, it is 9:14. We are back in open session. I would like to make a motion to support the contract for the Director of Special Education Services.
Second.
Curtis seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Bowen, aye.
Conry, aye.
Constantine, aye.
Elfenbein, aye.
Green eye.
Boy, aye.
Miller, aye.
Thank you. That motion passes. I would like to make a motion to support the 1.5% contract increase of the superintendent and the business administrator.
I'll second that.
Julia seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Bowen, aye.
Conry, aye.
Constantine, aye.
Elfenbein, aye.
Green eye.
Ursula?
She said aye, but her mic
Oh.
didn't pick it up.
Okay.
Sorry. Malloy, aye.
Miller, aye.
Thank you. That motion passes. Okay, next up on the agenda, upcoming meetings. There's a finance subcommittee meeting on the 23rd at 4 p.m. and another one in October on the 7th at 4 p.m. We have a regular session school committee meeting October 14th at 6 p.m. And as Jake mentioned, there may be another special session in there somewhere for the full school committee. Any questions there? Any agenda requests? I have no other items for discussion. Thank you, everyone. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Julia moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
Curtis seconds. All in favor?
Bowen, aye.
Conry, aye.
Constantine, aye.
Elfenbein, aye.
Green eye.
Boy, aye.
Miller, aye.
Okay, that motion passes. We are adjourned at 9:16 p.m. Thank you, especially to Jake and Joe, who have been at the school since 6:15, looking at people's boogers.
Yeah, boogers down,
It's
everyone.
all good. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.